Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood alone in the center of the Great Hall, surrounded by 12 alien species who believed they ruled the galaxy for 120 years. Humanity had played the role of the quiet newcomer, the peaceful traders, the ones who always said yes when the council made demands. Elena had watched the recordings from Kepler 442b just 6 hours ago, and the images still burned in her mind like fire that would never go out. She had seen the Sindari warships descend upon the colony like predators falling upon helpless prey. She had heard the screams of mothers calling for their children as the raiders broke through the settlement walls. She had watched council peacekeeping vessels sitting at the edge of the system, doing absolutely nothing while human colonists died. The colonists had committed only one crime in the eyes of the council. They had refused to give up their children to the Sindari as tribute, a tradition the raiders claimed was sacred to their culture. Now Elena stood before High Arbiter Zolith, a being of living crystal who had ruled the council for 300 years, and she felt something cold and hard forming in her chest. The council has reached its decision, Zolith announced, his voice echoing through the chamber like wind through a cave of ice. Humanity will pay reparations to the Sindari Collective for the cultural offense committed by your colonists on Kepler 442b. Elena heard murmurs of approval from the other council members. The Volcari ambassador, whose people had burned 3 human agricultural worlds a century ago, nodded with satisfaction. The Thresson representative, who had once blockaded human trade routes and starved 2 million people, smiled his sharp-toothed smile. Furthermore, Zolith continued, humanity is forbidden from taking any military action against the Sindari, now or in the future, regardless of provocation. Elena thought about her grandmother, who had been among the first human diplomats to join the council. Her grandmother had believed that patience and kindness would eventually earn humanity a place of respect among the stars. She had been wrong. Elena thought about her father, who had spent his entire career negotiating with species who saw humans as useful tools at best and annoying pests at worst. He had died believing that one more compromise, one more concession, one more act of submission would finally prove humanity worthy of equal treatment. He had been wrong too, Ambassador Vasquez, Zolith said, and Elena could hear the expectation in his crystalline voice. You will transmit your acceptance of these terms to Earth immediately. The chamber fell silent. 12 pairs of alien eyes watched her, waiting for a human to bow as humans always did. Elena remembered something her grandmother had told her long ago. In the quiet hours before her death, we smile because we choose to smile. Elena, not because we have no teeth. Elena looked up at the High Arbiter, and for the first time in 120 years, a human ambassador did not bow. No, the word hung in the air like the first crack of thunder before a storm. Zoleth's crystal form flickered with colors that Elena had never seen before, shades that she suspected represented emotions the High Arbiter had not felt in centuries. You refuse the council's ruling? He asked, and his voice carried genuine disbelief. I reject it entirely, Elena said, and her voice did not waver. The people of Kepler 442 billion were not criminals committing cultural offenses. They were parents protecting their children from slavers. The Sindari tribute system is a recognized cultural practice. The Sindari warlord, Teth, growled from his seat. Protected under council law for 8,000 years. Then council law is wrong, Elena replied. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had not agreed on anything in millennia found common ground in their outrage at human defiance. Elena stood in the center of their fury like a small rock in a raging river, unmoved and unafraid. You forget your place, human, Zola said when the noise finally died down. Your species has been part of this council for barely a century. A single breath in the life of civilizations that have existed for ages beyond your comprehension. We forget nothing. Elena said, "We remember every world you took from us in the name of peace. Every compromise you forced upon us in the name of harmony. Every time you watched our people suffer and did nothing in the name of neutrality." She reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small device, no larger than her palm. "For 120 years, you have believed that humanity accepted your rule because we were weak," she said. "You were wrong. We accepted your rule because we were patient." She pressed the activation sequence on the device. "We learned your languages, your customs, your strengths, and your weaknesses." A soft beep confirmed that her message had been sent. "We made ourselves useful, made ourselves trusted, made ourselves essential to 100 worlds across your precious council." Zolith rose from his seat, his crystal form blazing with angry light. "What have you done, Ambassador?" Elena smiled, and there was nothing warm or diplomatic in that smile. "I have sent a message to Earth containing 3 words. Wake the sleepers." "And what does that mean?" Teth demanded, his clawed hands gripping the arms of his chair. "It means that the game is over," Elena said. "It means that humanity is done pretending." She turned and walked toward the chamber exit, her footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. "Ambassador Vasquez," Zolith called after her, "if you leave this chamber, there will be consequences." Elena paused at the door and looked back at the 12 species who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. "High Arbiter," she said, "we are counting on it." She stepped through the door and let it close behind her, deep beneath the surface of Luna. In facilities that had been dark and silent for decades, lights began to flicker on computers that had been sleeping awoke and began running programs that had been written before. Elena Vasquez was born, and in hidden shipyards scattered across human space, buried in asteroids and hidden in the crushing depths of gas giants. Thousands of vessels that officially did not exist began powering up their engines for the first time. The Council had pushed humanity too far, and humanity was finally ready to push back. Admiral Marcus Chun had been waiting for this moment for 30 years. He stood on the bridge of the UE's Prometheus, a warship that no Council database had ever recorded, watching his crew work with quiet efficiency as systems came online one by one. The message from Ambassador Vasquez had arrived 6 hours ago, and in that time, the Black Fleet had transformed from a collection of sleeping giants into a force that would make the galaxy tremble. "Admiral," his first officer reported, "all 2,700 vessels are reporting combat ready. Crews are at full strength, and morale is through the roof." Marcus nodded and allowed himself a small smile. 2,700 ships, each one designed and built in secret over the course of a century. Each one crewed by men and women who had trained for this day while pretending to be miners, merchants, and engineers. The Council had no idea what was coming. He remembered the day it had all begun, 40 years ago. When he had been a young lieutenant serving on a diplomatic vessel, the Council had been mediating a dispute between humanity and the Valkyrie over a small agricultural world called New Providence. The human colonists had arrived first, had built their farms and raised their families, and created a community from nothing, but the Valkyrie had claimed the world sat within an ancient migration corridor, a route their species had used 10,000 years ago and might want to use again someday. The Council had ruled in favor of the Valkyrie. Marcus had watched from orbit as Valkyrie warships descended upon New Providence and burned everything the colonists had built. He had listened to the screams on the emergency channels as 70,000 humans died because of a treaty clause written before humanity had even discovered fire, and he had seen his captain, a woman named Sarah Okonkwo, who had believed in peace and diplomacy with all her heart, weep silently at her command chair as she followed orders and did nothing. That night, Marcus had received a message on a secure channel he had not known existed. Message contained coordinates and a simple instruction. Come alone. He had found himself in a hidden facility beneath the Martian surface, standing before a council of humans, who had no official titles but clearly wielded enormous power. They had shown him the plans for Project Prometheus. The council will never see us as equals, the eldest among them had explained. They are too old, too set in their ways, too convinced of their own superiority to ever accept that a young species could be their partner rather than their servant. So we will build in secret. Another had said, we will prepare for the day when the council goes too far and forces us to reveal what we truly are. And what are we truly? Young Marcus had asked. The elder had smiled. We are the species that refused to die in our cradle, that crawled out of our gravity well with primitive rockets and sheer stubbornness, that spread across the stars despite every obstacle the universe threw at us. We are humanity, and we bowed to no one. Now, 30 years later, Marcus stood at the helm of their greatest achievement. The Prometheus was not just a warship. It was a statement. Every system on board had been designed by human engineers who had been forbidden by council law from pursuing certain lines of research. They had pursued those lines anyway, in secret, and the results had exceeded all expectations. The council believed that certain technologies were impossible because they had tried and failed to develop them millennia ago. Humanity had not tried and failed. Humanity had tried and tried and tried again until they succeeded. The ship's communication officer looked up from her station. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from Dr. Tanaka on Luna. She says Phase 2 is ready to begin. Marcus felt his heart quicken. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was in charge of the other half of humanity's secret preparations, the part that did not involve weapons or warships. For a century, human traders and teachers and doctors and engineers had spread across council space. They had made themselves useful to species that the council had neglected or exploited. They had learned alien languages and customs and built relationships based on respect and mutual benefit. They had asked about alien children by name and remembered alien holidays and shown up with help when disasters struck. Small kindnesses repeated millions of times across thousands of worlds, creating a network of trust that no fleet could ever match. Tell Dr. Tanaka to proceed, Marcus ordered. Across the galaxy, humans in 100 different professions received coded messages and began making preparations of their own doctors. Started quiet conversations with their alien colleagues about the things the council had done in the name of order. Engineers began sharing files that the council had tried to suppress. Teachers told their students the truth about what had happened to species that had defied council rule. The truth was spreading like wildfire, and no amount of censorship could stop it. Marcus looked out at the stars and thought about all the humans who had worked and sacrificed and kept the secret for so long. They had played the part of the weak newcomers so well that even some humans had forgotten it was an act. But now the masks were coming off. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Tell them to prepare for departure. What should I tell them our destination is, Admiral? His first officer asked. Marcus thought about New Providence and the 70,000 dead. He thought about Kepler 442b and the children the Sundari had taken. He thought about every time humanity had been forced to smile and nod while the far less failed. Council treated them like pets that should be grateful for their scraps. Tell them we are going to have a conversation with the council, he said, and this time we will be doing the talking. The Black Fleet began to move, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Humanity was done hiding, and the galaxy would never be the same. High Arbiter Zolith had ruled the Galactic Council for 300 years by understanding one simple truth. The universe respected strength and punished weakness. He had watched species rise and fall like waves upon a shore. He had seen rebellions crushed and empires humbled and entire civilizations reduced to footnotes in the great history of the galaxy. He had never once seen anything like what was happening now. "Hi, Arbiter," his aide reported, voice trembling with confusion. "Human merchant vessels across Council space have gone dark simultaneously. All of them. Every single one." Zolith's crystal form flickered with colors of concern. Human merchants had become essential to the galactic economy over the past century. They carried medical supplies to plague worlds and technical equipment to developing colonies, and food to regions struck by famine. They asked for nothing but fair payment and treated their trading partners with a respect that most Council species found almost embarrassing. "Find them," Zolith ordered. "We cannot." "High Arbiter, they have simply vanished, and the species they served are already sending complaints about missing shipments." Before Zolith could respond, another aide rushed into the chamber. "High Arbiter, the Kovani homeworld is reporting a medical emergency. Their hospitals were expecting human supply ships carrying medicine for the plague. The ships never arrived." Then another aide, "The Thressen communication network has suffered a cascade failure. They say their human technical consultants have disappeared." Then another, "3 agricultural worlds in the Outer Rim are reporting that their human advisors left without warning. Their crop yields are already dropping." Zolith felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. He summoned an emergency session of the Council and watched as the 12 great species took their seats with expressions ranging from anger to fear. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the chamber once again. But this time, she was not alone. A holographic display floated beside her, showing messages that were flooding in from across the galaxy. Messages from species that the Council had barely noticed for millennia. Messages that made Zolith's ancient heart grow cold. "The humans treated us as partners, not subjects." Read a message from the Varth, a species the Council had forcibly relocated 3 times. "They asked nothing but fair trade," wrote the Nemeran, whose technological development had been deliberately held back by Council decree. "They helped us when the Council turned away," declared the Kelthari, whose population had been reduced to a fraction of its former size after a failed rebellion. "What have you done?" Zolith demanded. Elena smiled, that same unsettling smile she had worn the day before. "We made friends. High Arbiter, real friends, not allies bound by treaties and threats, but partners who trust us because we earned that trust. You think this matters?" Sindari warlord Teth snarled. "You think a few grateful primitives will save you from Council justice?" "I think," Elena replied calmly, "that you have spent so long ruling through fear that you have forgotten what loyalty looks like." Teth slammed his clawed fist on his console. "Enough of this. I am ordering my 3rd fleet to your pathetic homeworld. We will burn Earth to ash and scatter your species across the void as a lesson to any who would defy Council authority. You are welcome to try." Elena said the Sindari 3rd Fleet, 200 warships strong, entered the Sol system 3 hours later. They came expecting an easy victory. They found something else entirely. Admiral Marcus Chun watched from the bridge of the Prometheus as the Sindari vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel, their weapons already powering up. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "enemy fleet is advancing in standard Council attack formation. They have not detected our ships yet." Marcus nodded. The Black Fleet was spread throughout the system, hidden in positions that no Council species would think to check. Humanity had spent a century studying Council tactics, and they knew every weakness in those ancient battle plans. "Signal the fleet," Marcus ordered. "Execute Maneuver 17 on my mark." He waited until the Sindari ships had committed to their approach vector. until they were too deep in the system to easily retreat. The Black Fleet materialized around the Sundari like ghosts appearing from thin air. 2,700 human warships emerged from hiding, their weapons already locked on target. The Sundari commander barely had time to register what was happening before the first volley struck. Human weapons did not follow Council specifications. Human engineers had asked questions that the Council had declared forbidden millennia ago, and they had found answers that the Council had believed impossible. Sundari shields, designed to counter Council weapons, failed completely against human technology. Sundari armor, the strongest in the galaxy according to Council records, melted like ice under a summer sun. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 17 Sundari ships limped away toward Council space, leaving the wreckage of 183 vessels drifting in the void. Admiral Chun did not pursue. Open a channel to the Council, he ordered moments later. Eye Arbiter Zola's face appeared on screen, his crystal form cycling through colors that Marcus did not recognize. You have made a terrible mistake. Human, Zola said, but his voice lacked its usual certainty. No. Eye Arbiter, Marcus replied. We have corrected one. The mistake was believing we were weak. The mistake was thinking that patience meant submission. The mistake was yours, not ours. The combined fleet will destroy you, Zolas declared. Every ship under Council command will converge on your territory, and we will wipe humanity from existence. Marcus smiled. Then summon your fleet, High Arbiter. Summon every ship you have. He leaned forward in his chair. And when they arrive, ask yourself one question. If humanity hid this from you for a century, what else might we have hidden? The transmission ended in the Council chambers. Zolith issued the order he had never believed he would need to give. Summon the combined fleet. All of it. We go to war. Captain Sarah Okonkwo guided her ship through the outer territories of Council space, visiting worlds that the great powers had forgotten long ago. Her vessel carried no weapons. Instead, it carried something far more dangerous. The truth, she was the granddaughter of the captain who had wept at her command chair while New Providence burned. And she had inherited both her grandmother's name and her mission, but where her grandmother had believed in peace through patience, Sarah believed in justice through revelation. Her first stop was Varathi Prime, homeworld of a species that had once controlled a small but prosperous empire. The Council had relocated the Varath 3 times in the past 5 centuries, each time taking their best worlds and giving them to more favored species. The current Varath leader, an ancient being named Kethal, who remembered all 3 relocations, met Sarah in a chamber carved from living stone. Why should we help humanity? Kethal asked, his voice heavy with the weariness of a people who had learned never to hope. Sarah activated her holographic display and showed him records that human intelligence agents had gathered over the past century, because we know the truth about the 3rd relocation, she said. The images showed Council documents proving that the Varath had been moved not because of any legitimate territorial claim, but because a Valkyrie corporation wanted their mineral-rich worlds. The Council had manufactured the legal justification. Afterward, Cathal watched in silence, his ancient eyes filling with tears that his species had not shed in generations. We always knew, he said finally. We always suspected, but we could never prove it. Now you can, Sarah said. And you are not alone. She visited 14 more worlds in the following weeks. On each one, she shared evidence of Council corruption, of deliberate oppression, of crimes that had been buried for millennia. Nemeran learned that their technological stagnation was not natural but engineered, the result of Council policies designed to keep them dependent. The Kelthari discovered that their failed rebellion had been provoked by Council agents who wanted an excuse to reduced their population, the Thracian common people heard recordings of their own leaders laughing about how easily they had fooled their citizens into supporting council. Wars everywhere Sarah went. The reaction was the same. First disbelief, then anger, then a burning desire for change. Why are you doing this? A young Nemeran student asked her after one presentation, what does humanity gain from sharing these secrets? Sarah thought about her grandmother and all the humans who had worked in secret for so long. We gain allies, she admitted. We gain friends who will stand with us when the council comes for our worlds. She paused and looked at the young alien with honest eyes. But that is not the only reason. We share these secrets because they are yours. Because you deserve to know what was done to you and why. Because truth is more valuable than any weapon. The student stared at her for a long moment. You really believe that, do you not? They asked. We really do. Word spread faster than any ship could travel. Species that had been rivals for millennia found common ground in their shared victimhood. Leaders who had never spoken began communicating through channels that human engineers had quietly installed decades ago, and the coalition of the forgotten began to take shape when the Council's combined fleet finally assembled and began its march toward human space. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen, 12,000 warships from 100 different species. Enough firepower to crack planets and extinguish stars. But as they crossed into the outer territories, strange things began to happen. Supply convoys were delayed by bureaucratic errors that no one could trace. Communication networks experienced glitches at critical moments. Crew members received messages from home telling them what their governments had really done in the name of Order 3, Corvani. Vessels broke formation and refused to continue. Their captains declaring that they would not fight against the species that had saved their people from them. Plague 7 Nemeran ships followed, their crews announcing that they had learned the truth about their history. The trickle became a flood by the time the combined fleet reached the border of human space. It had lost almost a third of its strength to defection and desertion. And waiting for them was not just the Black Fleet ships from 37 species floated alongside human vessels. Their crews standing ready to fight against the Council that had oppressed them for so long. Admiral Marcus Chun opened a channel to the entire combined fleet. You came here expecting to destroy humanity, he said. But look around you. Look at who stands with us. We are not your enemy. We never were. Your real enemy is the system that taught you to fear change and hate difference and crush anything that threatened the power of those who already had too much. Any ship that wishes to leave may do so now without pursuit. Any crew that wishes to defect will be welcomed. Any species that wishes to join us needs only ask. Silence followed then. One by one, more ships began to break away from the combined fleet. Some retreated toward home, others crossed the invisible line and took positions alongside the coalition. High Arbiter Zolith watched from his flagship as his invincible armada crumbled. This is impossible, he whispered, but it was not impossible. It was simply the result of a century of kindness coming. Though humanity had planted seeds across the galaxy, small acts of respect and compassion that the Council had dismissed as weakness. Now those seeds had grown into a forest, and the Council was lost within it. High Arbiter Zolith stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his remaining fleet face a force that should not have existed for 300 years. He had ruled through fear for 300 years. He had believed that strength meant making others bow now. Staring at the combined human and coalition fleet arrayed against him, he finally understood how wrong he had been. Signal the attack, he ordered, because he did not know how to do anything else. The battle began. Human tactics were unlike anything Council military doctrine had prepared for. Where Council fleets fought in rigid formations perfected over millennia, Human ships moved like water, flowing around obstacles and striking from unexpected angles, where Council commanders followed battle plans handed down through generations. Human officers adapted in real time, making decisions that seemed almost random but always proved devastating. But it was not human weapons or human tactics that truly won the day. It was human choices when a Valkyrie dreadnought was crippled by coalition fire, its hull breached and life support failing. It was human rescue ships that arrived first. Admiral Chun ordered 3 of his own vessels to break formation and save the dying crew, even as Valkyrie weapons continued firing at human ships elsewhere in the battle. "Why are you helping us?" the Valkyrie captain demanded as human medics carried her wounded to safety. "We burned your worlds. We killed your people. Why would you save us?" The human commander who oversaw the rescue operation looked at her with eyes that held no hatred. "Because we did not fight this war to become what you were," he said. "We fought it to prove there was another way." Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated itself again and again. Human ships protected retreating enemies instead of pressing advantages. Human commanders offered surrender terms that were genuinely generous, promising fair treatment and eventual freedom. Human soldiers risked their own lives to pull alien wounded from the wreckage of destroyed vessels. The Council crews had been taught that mercy was weakness. What they witnessed instead was strength of a kind they had never imagined. One by one, Council ships stopped fighting. Some surrendered formally. Others simply powered down their weapons and drifted, their crews too confused to continue a battle that no longer made sense. When the shooting finally stopped, the coalition had lost 400 ships. The Council had lost over 6,000. But the true victory had nothing to do with numbers. High Arbiter Zola's flagship hung dead in space, its engines destroyed and shields collapsed. A human shuttle docked with the crippled vessel, and Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through corridors that had once represented the absolute power of galactic civilization. She found Zolith in his private chambers, his crystal form dim and flickering. "Have you come to kill me?" he asked, and there was no fear in his voice, only exhaustion. Elena shook her head. "We have come to offer you a choice." "High Arbiter." She sat down across from him. This ancient being who had ruled the stars before her species had learned to make fire. "You can cling to the old ways and be remembered as the leader who destroyed the Council through stubbornness and pride. Or you can help us build something new, something better, and be remembered as the leader who had the wisdom to change." Zolith was silent for a long time. "Why would you offer me this?" he finally asked. "I ordered your worlds attacked. I called you vermin and pests and primitives not worthy of respect. Why would you not simply destroy me and take your revenge?" Elena smiled, and there was genuine warmth in it, because revenge is just another kind of cage. "High Arbiter, and we did not come this far to lock ourselves in a prison of our own making." The reformation of the Council took 3 years. Old leaders were removed, not through execution, but through exposure of their crimes and the judgment of their own. New representatives took their seats, chosen not for their power, but for their wisdom. The coalition species were welcomed as equal partners, their voices finally heard in chambers where they had once been ignored. And through it all, humanity played a role that surprised everyone who had expected them to seize control. "We will not take the high seat," Elena announced at the first session of the Reformed Council. "We have no interest in ruling the galaxy, only in being part of it." "Then what do you want?" A Corvani delegate asked. Elena looked around the chamber at species who had been enemies and were now becoming friends. "We want what we have always wanted," she said. "To explore the stars, to learn from other civilizations, to build relationships based on respect and mutual benefit. We want to be partners, not masters, and definitely not servants. We want to prove that kindness is not weakness." That patience is not submission. That forgiveness is not surrender. She smiled. We want to show the galaxy that there is another way. 10 years later, Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat on the porch of her home on New Geneva, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold, and crimson. Children played in the garden below, and their laughter carried on the evening breeze. Some of those children were human. Others were Corvani and Nemarin, and even a few young Valkyrie whose families had settled in human space after the war. They played together, without caring about the conflicts of their ancestors. A shuttle landed in the courtyard, and Elena smiled as she recognized her visitor. Clara was the granddaughter of warlord Keth, who had died in the final battle, defending a system that no longer mattered. She had become a diplomat herself, dedicating her life to ensuring that her species never repeated the mistakes of the past. Ambassador, Clara said, I came to thank you. For what? Elena asked. My teachers told me that humanity was weak because you always chose peace over war, Clara said. But I have studied your history now, and I understand. You chose peace because you understood war. You chose patience because you understood time. And you chose forgiveness because you understood that hate destroys the one who holds it more than the one it is aimed at. Elena nodded and gestured for the young Sundari to sit beside her. The council believed that strength meant making others bow, Elena said. We believe that true strength meant having the power to destroy everything and choosing to build instead. She looked out at the children playing in the fading light. We did not win this war with weapons, Clara. We won it with a century of small kindnesses, with doctors who learned alien languages, and engineers who fixed things for free, and teachers who remembered the names of their students' children. We won it by showing the galaxy who we really are. Clara followed her gaze to the garden below. And who are you really? Elena smiled. We are the species that refused to give up on the universe, even when the universe gave us every reason to surrender. We are humanity, and we believe that tomorrow can always be better than today. Across the galaxy, the story of humanity's war spread from world to world, but not as a tale of military conquest. It spread as something far more powerful. Proof that a species could face impossible odds and overwhelming cruelty and still choose hope over hatred. And wherever that story was told, beings of 100 different species looked at the humans among them with new eyes, not with fear, with contempt, with respect. And that, more than any fleet or any weapon, was humanity's greatest victory. The galaxy had changed forever, and it had changed for the better.